Hello everyone, this is Jake with BMI Imaging. Just want to welcome you all out to our webinar today. We're going to be talking about the microfilm scanning process. Before we get going here, and as people are trickling in, I just want to make sure that my audio is working properly. So on the right in your little taskbar thing you have through GoToMeeting, you should have the option to raise your hand. If you wouldn't mind clicking on that, that would be helpful so that I know that you can hear me. Okay, good. I'm seeing some hands. So at least some of you can hear me. That's good. Just so you know, you're all muted, so you're not going to have any ability to talk or ask questions. But there is a question bar within that task bar on the right that you can type in questions. And then at the end, I can go through some of those questions if there are any. You also have the option to just send me an email or give me a call. I'll provide you with all my information. You can see my email address down there at the bottom, but you can also even reply to the email that you received to attend this as well. So feel free to type out some questions as we go through this, and at the end, if you want to stick around for a little bit of Q&A, assuming there are some questions, we'll go over those. If there are not any questions, then we'll end the webinar with that last slide. So let's go ahead and get started. Again, I want to welcome you to the webinar today. We're going to be talking about the microfilm scanning process here at BMI. This is going to be specific to the way BMI does things. Every company is going to be a little bit different, but this is how we handle a typical microfilm scanning process. So just a quick little tidbit about BMI Imaging. We've been around for a long time. We've been around since the 50s. We started as a microfilming company. Obviously, there wasn't the digital technology that we have today. So we were creating microfilm. A lot of the microfilm that you see, newspapers and things like that that are out here on the West Coast was done by BMI. That was a big part of what we did. We still do a little bit of microfilming, just not much. There's not a lot of folks out there requiring it. So most of the work we do is digital. We've kind of grown with the space and with the technology, and so we do a lot of scanning. We scan all different types of formats: paper, microfilm, microfiche, you name it, we scan it. We also do legacy data conversion, so if you have old legacy data that you want to get into a new updated system, we do that as well. We have 2 facilities out here in California, and then we have lots of partner facilities across the country. So if there's a specific project that requires somebody more local, we have a facility we can work with to help facilitate that, but typically most of our projects are done out here in California. And we have clients all over the country. We have very large clients, small clients, they vary in sizes. We don't discriminate on size. We like all projects. And kind of dealing with that, and the reason we have so many clients across the country, even though we're based out of California, is our online presence and also our presence at conferences. So we attend many industry-specific conferences, lots of different industries. We go to the big annual ones, we go to regional ones as well, and there we get to meet clients from all over. So let's get right into it. Today, again, we're talking about the 10-step microfilm scanning process. So we'll have 10 different steps here that we'll go over. You can see them there, and if you had a chance to look at the material or the homework that was given to you, you've probably gone through this and seen some of this before. If you're seeing it for the first time, that's fine. We're going to go over it today. And again, you can find it on our website on the blog, 10-step microfilm scanning process. So we have receiving the microfilm, tagging, secure transportation, creating job orders, some things that go along with that in the creation process, the actual prep of the scanning, the microfilm scanning, and then what happens once the film is scanned are the things that we're going to go over today. So let's get right into it. So the first step is to receive the microfilm. I guess that's the first step, physical step. There's going to obviously be some things that need to take place before this happens. You're going to talk with one of our sales reps, myself or somebody else here, and you're going to discuss the project plan and what you have and kind of come up with a plan, and you're going to have a contract and things like that. So once all that stuff's done, this is going to be the first step in the implementation of the project, and that's getting it to us. There's lots of different ways you can do this. The most popular way, if you're local, is for us to just come out and pick it up. If you're further away, then shipping is probably the second most popular. And then the last step, or the last least popular but still an option, is we come out and pick it up, even though you're far away. For very large projects, that's what we'll do. We have our own employees, drivers that are, this is their job, this is what they do, they drive. We have our own trucks, vans, things like that, and sometimes we have to rent trucks depending on the size of the project. So we can facilitate that. So again, this is all going to be dependent on what you have and what method you prefer. But most of our out-of-state clients will simply just ship the material to us. If it is sensitive material or you're concerned about the safety of the material and you don't want to simply box it up and put, send it FedEx or UPS, we provide metal locking containers that you can load the material into and then ship it to us. And we have a key, you have a key on your end, and we'll unlock it, ship it, or unlock it, do all the processing, and then send it back to you, and you'll have a key to unlock it. So we do that a lot with secure records. Some clients still send it monthly like that. So that's an option, but this can be tailored specific to your situation, and we can discuss what's best for you with your specific project when we get to that point. The next step, so let's say we've overcome that hurdle of getting the material to BMI, is we will then tag each container. So if it comes in boxes, we'll tag the boxes. Crates, we have clients that send us crates of material, they have lots and lots of material. Whatever mechanism or vessel that was provided, we'll tag it so that we can track it internally. We assign it a job number, it gets a unique box number, and everything, so that we know exactly where it is. It tells us who actually tagged it. This all goes into our material tracking system. We call it MTS. I may refer to it as MTS later on, but that's what we're talking about. And so we know exactly who checked it in, what time, where, things like that. Next, we take that material and we put it into the secure storage vault. This is where all the microfilm goes once it's been tagged. You may ask, why is it going there? Why isn't it going straight to the scanner? And that's because there's a process to everything. Not everything that shows up the day of gets thrown right onto the scanners. There's lots and lots of projects going on, and so everything kind of has its own order of operations. And so sometimes it may go to the vault for a day, maybe two. It just depends on what's going on, around that with other projects and what the necessity is for your specific project. We have some projects that need to be done quickly, so they could get right in and they take priority. And that's all done in advance. That's all scheduled in advance. But typically, they go into the vault where they're secured. This is a secure vault. Only a few people have access to it. In fact, I don't even have access to this vault. It always stays locked, just to make sure that regardless of the records, that they're kept safely. We do a lot of secure projects where the material that we're scanning, like law enforcement, things like that. Student records where we don't want to risk those being compromised. And then of course there's projects where the material, it's public knowledge, it's no big deal. It still goes through this process. We want to make sure everybody's material is kept safe. So once it's in the vault, we have a job order created. This is something that your salesperson will work directly with you typically, and it's going to be based off of the scope of work that was predefined and within the contract. Typically, the job order is going to start with, the original opportunity that was discussed. If you've already talked to BMI about a project, you've probably heard me or somebody say, yeah, we need to talk to our team and then we'll get you pricing. So we usually go through that process first. We'll discuss it as a team, and we'll come up with pricing and a plan, and then we'll present that to you. You'll agree to it, or however that's negotiated. So that's included. The material security classification. So is it sensitive? Is this highly sensitive? Depending on the type of material, because that's going to go through a different process. Really, really highly sensitive stuff is going to be done very, very differently than public. Like newspapers, things that the public can have access to, because there's not as big a risk, so they don't need to be segregated on different servers and things like that. Scanning resolution is a popular thing that needs to be outlined. Typically, it's 300 dpi. Your output format, which we'll get into towards the end, TIFF, JPEG, PDF, that kind of thing. How you're going to index it. Really, this is just the specific instructions as to how we're going to do the job step by step. so that our team can follow it and so that it matches perfectly with the contract. So we do what we're contracted to do. Also within the job order is our project tracking. This is done through our Unity system. So it's something we created. It's a custom software that we created internally called Unity. And this tracks each one of those steps along the way. So at any point in time, those who are connected to this project, including the salesperson, will have access to this report, and they can see, okay, where are we at along the process? Okay, it's been scanned, it's now in QA, or it's been logged in the system, they've microfilmed, or they've photographed the labels. That's where it's at along the process. So this is it's a really unique tool that we have internally to kind of track each step as we go through all the different process flows. So the next thing is, once that job order is created and it's in the vault sitting there, is they take it out of the vault and they photograph the microfilm labels. We do this for a number of reasons, but mainly it is so that it can all be tracked. So when we scan this roll of microfilm and a customer then comes to us and says, why does this look the way this looks, or why is this indexed the way this is indexed? The first thing we can do is go back and look at what the microfilm container told us it was going to be. And so that helps alleviate some of those issues. It also helps when a customer has a request and says, I need to find this record, it should be on this roll of film. We can go to the label and look at that kind of thing. And then sometimes we use this for indexing as well, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. So a lot of projects will just take the information from the label and create files based on that information. So it's important to have that. It's all based on tracking, so that we can kind of all know, everybody can be on the same page as to what was scanned and where it came from. The next thing we do is we tag the microfilm box, the container. We typically just do this a few times. Every once in a while, we'll have a project where the client may not like this because of whatever reason. Maybe they just don't, it's covering something. So we usually will ask, is this okay that we put a little sticker on the thing? Very rarely do we have any issues with that, but that is something to think about, I guess, as you're preparing this. Is there some reason you may not want a little sticker on your side of your microfilm container or box? It could be an issue, but it's really important for us to have that on there, because this is going to have a barcode, and this barcode is a unique identifier for us. This helps us give this its own unique file naming system. It helps us track it throughout the whole system. So not only are we tracking the box that the film came in, we're also tracking the carton that the film is in. So if there's 50 rolls inside of a box, that's all being tracked, and it knows what box came from where and what individual unit is being tracked. This is very important for us. It also gives it a unique file. We've come across many projects where maybe the microfilm carton itself, this thing that you're seeing here, has the same information, or maybe it's a duplicate. Each individual unit is going to have its own barcode. So that's how we're able to track that it's different. We've got a few projects where maybe a client has sent duplicates, the same thing twice. So they had a positive roll and a negative roll of the exact same thing. And then at the end of the project, they're wondering why they have two of the same thing. And we can show that they are both individual units. And it's because you sent us two. It wasn't because we scanned the same thing twice. This is how we're able to track that. So it's important to have that. So we've scanned we microfilmed, we photographed the microfilm carton, we've tagged it, it's all tracked in the Unity system. Next, it comes to microfilm preparation. So the microfilm preppers at their little stations, they will scan that barcode, and that'll pull up the Unity system and the MTS, the tracking system that we have for that microfilm label, and they're going to check the film for a few things. First, they're going to check to make sure the leader of the microfilm, which is basically, I guess essentially it's meaning there's enough room to be able to load the roll onto a scanning machine. If it starts with the first image is the very first section of the microfilm, we would have to add leader to that, because we're not going to be able to scan that very first image. but most microfilm comes with a pretty good sized leader, and that's basically you opening up that roll and unwinding it, and you're gonna see a lot of black space at first. That's that leader that we're talking about. So it's important that that's there. If it's not there, we'll have to add it so that we can scan it. And that's what we find out in the film inspection. We're also checking to make sure the film is good, it's good quality, it hasn't deteriorated, there's not any splicing that needs to be done or tears. We check the quality of it, you know, is it going to actually hold up in the scanner if it is deteriorating? You know, vinegar syndrome is something we see a lot. And so we want to check all that before we load it to the microfilm scanner, because we don't want to break it. So we'll always ask our customers if we find anything during this process that we think may not scan, or even if we're just slightly skeptical, we'll bring that up. The salesperson, myself, will reach out to you and say, hey, we found this roll, and this roll. These all have deteriorating aspects to the film, and we're concerned that they might break during the scanning process. What would you like us to do? You know, would you like us to try to scan it anyways, and if it breaks, it breaks, and we'll try to fix it, or do you want us to hold off and not scan that? Another possibility is we could try to create another roll of microfilm from that, which would, because it's a little bit nicer of a process to create microfilm than it is to scan microfilm. So maybe that's an option. Again, something we'll go over as we get to that point. And then the next thing is density checks. So what you're actually seeing there in this image is somebody checking the density. And we'll check the very beginning of each roll of microfilm, the middle and end, to come up with density value. And this will help us to calibrate the scanner so that we're scanning at the best possible setting for each individual roll. And those settings get input into our tracking system, the Unity system, so that when the net gets to the next step, the scanners will already have all of that data. And so nothing is done manually, it's all done automated and accurately. But something important to mention during this step is that when you scan a roll of microfilm, we're not scanning each little frame and individual image is not being scanned at a specific setting to that image. That's a very expensive process. It can be done. It's just not done very often because it's very expensive. So what we do is we come up with an overall average setting for each individual roll of microfilm, the best average setting, so that it captures as many images as possible at a good setting. Now, you're going to have situations where some images are going to be lighter and darker than others, and so that may suffer as far as quality of the image goes, and we can talk about different things that we can help to alleviate those issues, but that is something to be aware of. Not every image is created equally, not every roll of microfilm is the same. We try to do the best we can, overall average setting for each individual roll of microfilm, but it's not a guarantee that every image is going to look perfect. A lot of that comes down to how it was filmed, the quality of the microfilm, different variables similar to that. So once it's all been checked, then it's then taken to our scanning room, which is a separate room, which again is locked. It is fortified, I want to say, because only certain people have access to that because of the sensitive nature of some of the projects that are going on in that room. It's another room I don't have access to because I don't need the security clearance for that. I'm not scanning. So that's another step we take for security. The microfilm scanning process is fairly straightforward. They receive the rolls. Each roll has a barcode on it, and they scan that barcode. That barcode will automatically calibrate the scanner for that specific roll of film, those settings that we received from the previous step. So the technician that is scanning doesn't need to do any type of manual configuration. It's all done through a process flow. And then the microfilm is then scanned. It goes through that process of scanning, and the images are then sent to the next step within the Unity system to be processed, which is the next step. Once they are scanned, then they receive a little dot down here. You see at the bottom of your picture, a color-coded dot. And that is basically just another checkpoint, another way of checking to ensure that it is scanned. So we'll have a digital trace or trail, audit trail, showing that it was scanned because it was barcoded and the scanning was completed. But then it's also another manual notification that it was scanned, so that we can track all that, make sure nothing is scanned twice or missed along the process flow. So it's two checks that we have there in place, an automated check and a manual check. So once the microfilm is scanned, now we're to the processing. This is where we can have a lot of variables depending on what you need for your project. There's a lot of different directions we can take the post-scan image processing, but all of our projects go through the framing process. So we've created some custom code and software to automatically frame each image as it goes through the scanner. You can kind of see that down in the lower image with the green bar or the green squares that kind of outline each frame. That's what the automated tool picks up when it goes through the scanner. Now, the issue that you could have with the auto tool is that it may miss frames, it may miss images. And it's really only going to miss the images when the images are very, very poor in quality. So they're really, really light or really, really dark, or they're not, there's not defined borders. This is a very, very common mistake that happens while scanning microfilm. And most companies that rely on the technology built within the scanners are going to miss these images. In fact, the industry standard, I believe, is somewhere around 99.5 or 0.7 as far as acceptance for that. Now, the problem with that is that means 0.3 or 0.5% of the images are going to be missing completely. When you get the output, when you get the PDF or the TIFF back, there is potential for 0.3% of those images missing over the course of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of records. That's a lot of records that are missing that you're not going to have a digital record of. And so you can't confidently put the microfilm away or destroy the microfilm because you can't say that you have 100% of the images. So to alleviate that issue, we also take this to another step where it is then checked to ensure that it is all there. We also have a product, which we'll discuss a little bit later, and a lot of you that have been on some of our other webinars have heard of. It's called Digital Reel, where we actually provide you with a digital replica of the microfilm, which is what you see in the image above that one, where it's an exact replication. So there is 0% chance of missing any images through that method, which is a great insurance policy for those of you who are trying to back up images or possibly get rid of the microfilm. So once framing is done and it's been QA'd, we also QA the image quality. We want to make sure the images look good. This, again, is dependent on the quality of the material. We're not ensuring or guaranteeing that every image is going to be perfect or completely legible because we can't guarantee that the film itself is perfect. If the film is perfect, the image is going to come out perfect. But if the film has issues where it's really light, dark, density issues, exposure issues, we can't guarantee that we're going to get all the images perfectly. We just need to make sure that we did not mess up. We didn't do anything inaccurately. The scanning settings didn't go awry during the process or something like that. If there are issues with images and it's not our fault, due to settings and things like that, we can discuss some options as far as how to make that more legible or how to scan that better. Again, Digital Reel, which I discussed just a second ago, that fixes all those problems because you have the ability to adjust images within the application. But if you're not using Digital Reel and you're just getting a typical output, you could have concerns as far as image quality goes because of the original microfilm material may have been poor in itself. So we can discuss some options. There are some different things we can do to help fix that. And the last thing with post-scan image processing is the OCR and text search. A lot of you are going to want this. It's a really neat tool to have. It's not very expensive, so we recommend it with a lot of our projects. And so we'll process all of those images through a custom OCR tool that we have built specific to the type of material that we're scanning. Newspapers go through one OCR process typically, and then we'll OCR process, student records or something else through a different process specific to the content. And then all that gets kind of put back together, processed, checked, and attached to the image. The last step is indexing. Again, this is predefined. This is something we talk about before the project even begins. It's in the contract. It's how we know how we're going to do things. It can be very simple, and we can just create a file or a folder for each roll of microfilm and use the information on the carton of microfilm, which we captured in a photograph. So we'll have someone look at that photograph and they'll just type out the information on the photograph that shows the label, and that'll be the folder, or that'll be the file. Some projects require us to go deeper into indexing, where we'll actually look at each image, like we do with newspapers. That's what you see in those images up there. We'll look and we'll figure out what the title is, the date, the issue. With student records, we'll look for the name, date of birth, social, whatever it is that you need us to find. We can do that with some instructions from the client. But this is maybe the most involved portion that you get in a project like this is getting involved with the indexing instructions. Some are very straightforward, but some require a lot of input from the client. Exactly how you want us to name the files. You have to give us some examples and things like that. And we always do a test case. We always, before I kind of wrap up this last step, we always provide you with what we call an M1. It's a milestone one. And in the M1, it's a exact replication of this whole process done in a production environment. And we provide you with some samples of the files and say, hey, this is what we were contracted to do. Please check, make sure we did everything that we were supposed to do. If you have any issues, concerns, let us know. Once you check off on that, then we scan the rest of the material based on those settings. So output goes along with indexing. This is our very last step that we have to discuss today, and it's probably one of the more important ones. You know, what do you need in return? So you send us all your film, we scan it. What are you going to get back? You may have very specific instructions for us. A lot of our clients do. Some just say we just need something legible on our desktop or on a CD or something like that. PDF's typically going to check that box for you. But again, we have clients that have very specific needs. Uncompressed images, LZW, JPEG 2000, a lot of file formats that the typical or common person would not even know about because it's not something you deal with on a day-to-day basis, not like a PDF or a JPEG. So those are things that we would specify in the job order that you would help us kind of come up with that plan. Deliverables, as far as deliverable goes, if it's a very small project, not a lot of files, not a big data size, we can put them on a thumb drive. If it's a little bit bigger or you need encryption because they're sensitive records, we can put it on a portable hard drive that then we'll ship to you, and then we'll call you and give you the password or the passcode to open that drive. FTP is another thing. It's where we just put the files up. We have a site, it's a secure site that we'll put the files, we'll load the files to, and then you'll download them from. It's a little bit easier than the hard drive, but for very big projects, it could be labor intensive downloading all those files. So a hard drive may be a better option for that. We can also import the files directly into your document management or content management system. This is going to require some IT involvement typically because they're going to have to give us the path for that to format the images. So it really doesn't matter what system you have, we'll figure it out. But some of the more popular systems, we've done this 100 times, so we've already got it dialed in. So we can certainly just import the files directly into your system. And the last option is going back to what I was discussing before, the digital reel option. It's our own software. It's a cloud-based software. It's very, very simple, easy to use. Lots of examples online about it. We have webinars on our website about it. We always recommend this route because it's really low cost and it's got a lot of neat features that you don't get with the mundane or typical document management system. And that's that digital replica of the microfilm, the insurance policy that everything is scanned, and also the enhancement capabilities that you get with digital reel. You do not get that with really any document management system that I know of. So we've got a couple insurance policies built in to ensure that everything's there and everything is legible. So it's a really, really neat tool to have. And we typically do this in addition to the hard drive. So you'll get all the files back on the hard drive or FTP, and you get this application. It's a really neat tool to view it and to enhance it. If you have questions about that, please feel free to ask me after the webinar here, or check out our website for more information on that. So next steps, as we end here, is if you're interested in moving forward or you're pursuing this project, whether it be with us or someone else, you know, just reach out to us and give us a rough estimate on the number of roles you want to have scanned, and we can provide you with a cost. This can be very informal. It can just be via email, just quickly, hey Jake, I have this number of roles. What's the cost? And I can send that to you via email, or I can prepare a formal quote, proposal, whatever you need. It can be very quick and easy, or we can do the full-blown proposal if that's what you need. Also, we love doing samples. It's no cost, no obligation, so feel free to coordinate that with me, and we can set up, I get you the address and everything, and you can send us a roll or two. We'll scan it to whatever you think you want as an end product. That way you can see it in real time and say, that's exactly what we want, or maybe this doesn't work and we can fine tweak it from there. But we love to do samples, so do not hesitate to contact me to do that. Or you can reach out to some of our customers. We've got lots of resources online. There's case studies, but also you can speak directly to them if you have questions. Just reach out to me and say, hey, we're, what industry you're in, we're a library, or we're, in higher education, whatever it is, and I can find a client nearby, within the region, and I can give you their information. You can talk to them and see how their project went. So I want to thank everyone for your time today. Let me quickly check questions here to make sure we don't have any. I don't think I saw any come across. If we do have questions, I apologize. I'm not seeing them right now. So I'll reach out to you after the webinar is completed. But again, I want to thank everyone for your time today. I really appreciate it. Hope you found this to be informative. We really hope to hear from you guys, even if it's just kind of kicking the tires a little bit, wanting to see what the cost is. It's not a big deal at all. So please reach out to me there at the number I have, and we will hopefully hear from you soon. Thanks again.